Good evening. It is now 6 o'clock, and I hereby call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission to order. If we could please have the temporary procedures read, please.
The San Benito County Planning Commission welcomes your comments. Each individual speaker will be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes. When addressing the commission via Zoom, phone, or in chambers, please state your name and county in which you reside for the record. Please address the commission as a whole through the chair. If participating via Zoom, please turn your video on, select the Participants tab, and click the Raise Hand icon. If you are using phone, please press *9 to raise your hand when your turn arrives. You will hear that you have been unmuted. If you are participating in person at the chambers, please complete a speaker card identifying the item on which you wish to speak, and provide your completed card to the clerk prior to consideration of the item. Speaker cards are available on the table at the entrance to the chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could have a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Rodney Bianchi, District 1, is absent. Richard Way, District 2.
Present.
Robert Scaliotti, District 3.
Present.
Robert Gibson, District 4.
Present.
Celeste Toledo Bocanegra, District 5.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? This is general comment for anything that's under the purview of the Planning Commission but not on tonight's agenda.
There is no public comment in chambers, and there does not appear to be any public comment online.
Thank you. Consent agenda. We have acknowledgement of the certificate of posting and the minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I don't have any.
No? Okay. There was on, I guess it's under item 4.1, we have acknowledgement of certificate of posting. Looks like it was put in there twice.
It's the freelance proof.
Oh, okay.
For the notice of public hearing.
Okay, so we're good. Okay, is there a motion from the commission?
A motion we approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, thank you. Department announcements. Go back.
I think the PowerPoint went out.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Commission. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to make the department announcements. We have 2 for today. One of them is that at the August 8th board meeting, this last Board of Supervisors meeting, the board actually adopted or approved essentially a full-time position of a staff services specialist. And what occurred is, it's just a password. What occurred is that we have 2 existing vacant office assistant positions, and we have found that we have had quite a bit of turnover on these positions. It could be that we feel that it may be because of the pay and doing like exit interviews. That's what we felt. So we ended up bringing an item to the board, and the staff services specialist will have more responsibility, but more pay as well. And this person in particularly, we would like to inform the commission, will be essentially the face of the department, the whole RMA. Person that comes in, customers that come in, this person will greet them in kindly, will provide sound customer service, will be able to direct the person to all of our different divisions that we have within the department, integrated ways, planning, building, you name it. We'll be training this person to be able to provide sound and clear direction of where this person should go. So I just wanted to inform that we have gotten approval by the board, and we're going to be working on opening this position, and hopefully within the next few weeks we'll have recruitment for this position. Any questions on this? Very well.
What's the title of the position?
The title is Staff Services Specialist. Yes, and just the cost of the 2 vacant office positions, office assistant positions is more than the staff services specialist. So that covers the cost.
Is this person put in this position going to have knowledge of where to direct these people and how to help them get them started on the process through everything?
Absolutely.
Is this person going to have that kind of background?
Absolutely. We're going to be working with that person to train that person and hopefully have some background on that. And I mean, essentially would be a person that can, you know, have the aspirations to later maybe even apply for openings that occur in the future for like planners or engineering or integrated waste. So that will be, you know, a plus in our book. So absolutely. And the second announcement that the department would like to make is that on Friday, I actually spoke to Chair Gibson, and he asked if we can bring an item to announce to the Planning Commission regarding an update to provide an update in regards to the Joint Planning Commission Board of Supervisors meeting that we had back in June. As you know, it was a special meeting, a lengthy meeting. It was the first one that I have attended here while being within the county. I've attended in my previous positions, but I'm not sure if there's been one actually like this in the past. It was fully attended by all commissioners, fully attended by the board, as you well know. You were there. And we had discussions on various topics, including land use, housing, the housing element update, growth management ordinance, and mining. And so just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on where we're at. We had different topics regarding land use in the county, ag preservation. We talked about the conversion of farmland standards, including updating the 1-to-1 ratio to a 1-to-3 or potentially 1-to-4 ratio, you know, for every acre of ag land converted, preserved in perpetuity, 3 or up to 4. We talked about replacing the phrase of shall encourage to shall require, especially when referring to conversion of farmland standards. For example, instead of indicating shall encourage to farmland conservation of a ratio of 1-to-1 as it currently indicates in the general plan, indicate shall require farmland preservation of either 1-to-3 or 1-to-4, depending on where we land. Talked about an update of the general plan policy of prime ag land and the 4-year irrigation rule. As you know, right now the state basically indicates that if it is prime farm ag land, but it has not been irrigated in the past 4 years, then the prime designation is taken out from the state, even though it is considered prime ag land. And so we're gonna work on, per the direction of the Planning Commission Board, putting general plan policy to indicate that even if it is, even if it has not been irrigated, or regardless of irrigation, it continues to be, it will continue to remain prime. We talked about the support of the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Program, the SALC grant that we talked about, and creating an ag element in the general plan. As you all know, even though we are an ag community, ag county, there is no specific ag element in our general plan, so we will be working on that per your direction. We talked about creating partnerships with organizations like CHISPA and Community Services Development Corporation on affordable housing, special needs housing, veterans housing, and workforce housing. We talked about retaining and possibly adding more commercial designations throughout the county, removing the BOSA study area and other special community study areas of the general plan. That's going to be a little different. We have already gotten direction from the Planning Commission Board. That is anticipated to come before you next month. So that's not going to be included in the overall update of the general plan. We talked about the potential Santa Teresa extension, working with transit agencies to assist in creating new routes to areas for very low income housing. We talked about east of Fairview and south of Ridgemark, and talked about the existing land use of residential multiple versus potentially rural transition, or agriculture. General plan update fee, the creation of a nominal fee to be attributed to all building permits to fund the update of the general plan. As you know, the update of the general plan is a very detailed and long process that can be very costly. Just the housing element itself, we're anticipating it's approximately $500,000. The city of Hollister, with its update of the general plan, they're at approximately $2 million. So if we put a certain percentage to each building application, then hopefully by the time we need to do a major overhaul to our existing general plan, then hopefully we can have those funds to cover those costs. We talked about the preparation of a growth management ordinance for the county, and then staff received. We talked about not limiting the planning commission's role and authority, as well. That's what we heard from both the planning commission and the board, and so staff received direction to send a request for proposal to the county's consultants. We have a list of consultants that we're gonna basically summarize all of this information, finalize it, send it out to them, bring back from them a detailed scope with all of the work that is gonna entail on the general plan update per the direction of the planning commission and the board, provide a timeline of when this work is gonna be complete, and have that scope's gonna have all the details in regards to the growth management ordinance, as well as all these other aspects that we talked about. And we'll the plan is to bring it before you to make sure that it meets all of the needs and all of the requirements that you asked about. And then it will have scope, timeline, and cost. And then bring it before you for recommendation to the board, and then hopefully have the board adopt it. We did actually bring a budget item to the board to fund a potential general plan update, not the whole general plan, but the ones that we talked about on June 6th, and the board was very favorable to that budget adjustment for their 2023-2024 year.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Commissioners, any comments, questions? Just to refresh my memory,
Yeah.
we're talking Santa Teresa Road Extension, we're talking Santa Clara County, right?
Santa Clara County, extending it, it would be extending it southbound and then coming in westbound towards like Highway 25 and eventually connecting to 152 on the San Benito side.
Okay,
That's great.
thank you.
You're very welcome.
And in my haste to get the meeting started, I skipped the Pledge of Allegiance, and my vice chair reminded me of my error. So if you could please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Okay. Regular agenda, public hearing, 7.1. Hold the public hearing and consider adopting a resolution regarding county planning file PLN 230008, a conditional use permit to construct a 85-foot tall wireless telecom monopine tower.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Olivas. I'm an assistant planner with San Benito County, and tonight I will be discussing PLN 230008, a use permit for new cell tower at 51 Old Ranch Road. The project site is located at 51 Old Ranch Road, approximately 4 miles southeast of downtown Hollister. The project site is approximately 5 acres in size. The applicant proposes to construct an 85-foot tall wireless telecommunications monopine in a 1,600 square foot lease area. The pole would feature 3 levels in total for mounting equipment by multiple users. 12 8-foot antennas and 6 remote radio units, or RRUs, are proposed for the top level and intended for communications serving T-Mobile. 1 2-foot microwave dish would be placed at the second level. The remaining 2 middle levels would each be available for other providers' use or co-location. And an 8-foot chain link fence would enclose the lease area and allow ground space for equipment serving the 2 additional carriers in the future. This slide shows a more detailed view of the proposed tower and equipment locations on the monopole itself. Sorry, that was the next slide. The tower would stand 50 feet eastward from Fairview Road and 3,000 feet northward from the intersection of State Route 25 and Fairview Road. Okay, so on here, this one is going to show the more detailed view of the tower itself and the monopole. And so you can kind of see a layout for the levels of where you would see the future location areas, and as well as where the tower would be, in kind of a rough idea of how it would look. We'll also show additional photos later. Okay. And this figure shows the existing site, and that's the left lower picture, and with the proposed new tower in the right, and this would be if you were facing north from Old Ranch Road. And this next slide will show the existing site in the lower left, and the proposed new tower to the right, and this will be facing north from Fairview. And this figure shows the existing site in the lower left with the proposed new tower in the right, and this is facing southeast from Fairview. And this figure shows the existing site, again in the lower left, and with the proposed new tower in the right, and that is the northwest from the project site view. Okay, these images demonstrate the existing coverage without the new tower. The black arrow is the project site. The lighter pink indicates weaker signal. White indicates no coverage, and that's the left image. And then the coverage with the new tower is again, the black arrow indicates the project site. The lighter pink indicates the weaker signal, and then white is where there is no coverage. Okay, the San Benito County General Plan designates the project site as residential mixed, or RM. The purpose of this designation is to allow areas of unincorporated urban uses where circulation and utility services exist. This designation also does allow for cell towers. This project is consistent with the following general plan policies on screen, and these policies focus on the goal of ensuring the continued provision of telecommunication services and opportunities to enhance facilities to provide better, more reliable services to San Benito County residents, businesses, and first responders. The San Benito County Sheriff's Office commented that this would be beneficial to their own emergency services network, and the applicant has also agreed, per the sheriff's request, that they will allow the sheriffs to mount a repeater on the proposed tower to expand the local emergency network as well. This site is zoned rural. The purpose of this land use designation is to provide areas for mixtures of housing and small-scale agricultural uses. Cell towers are also allowed as a conditional use in this zone. Chapter 7.11, Wireless Communications Facility Standards, requires a 500-foot setback from residential area under 7.11.005, location of wireless communication facilities. Due to the proximity of the project site to residential areas, the cell tower would not be able to meet the 500-foot setback. However, under County Code 7.11.004, General Standards, Section H, the application is filed for a variance. Under this standard, an applicant may obtain a variance from the provisions of this chapter upon demonstrating the following: that the location of the support structure at the site is essential for the provision of service in the applicant's service area, that good faith efforts were made to secure other locations, and location at another site is not technologically feasible, or co-location. Okay, so as shown earlier in this presentation, the applicant has shown that there is a lack of coverage within their network, and this tower is essential to the applicant to fill those gaps in service. The applicant did try several other sites within their priority area, as per their RF engineer's recommendation in their ring study, to fill current coverage gaps. Prior to choosing this location, they sent letters to county staff stating that the owners of those sites either did not respond or turned down the tower within the technologically feasible area per the ring study. The applicant is also available to kind of expand upon that as well. The applicant also sent a letter stating that there are no other cell towers within a 1-mile radius of the site, and therefore co-location was not possible. This is a requirement of the variance and San Benito County Code 7.11.016, freestanding monopoles, Section D. This project is categorically exempt under Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures, Section 15303 of CEQA, as this project meets the requirements for the square footage, being within the requirements listed on the screen, and it meets the restriction as to the number of new installations of facilities. This project is also consistent with this exemption, as it is an extension of utility services, and the court cases on screen set further precedent for the use of the Class 3 exemption. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the staff report, review the attached draft resolution, findings and conditions of approval, and make the findings included in the resolution and adopt the resolution to approve conditional use permit PLN 230008, subject to the conditions of approval found in the resolution. Any questions?
Thank you. Before we go to the commissioners, is there any public comment?
If you would like to public comment, please raise your hand now or fill out a speaker card. I have no public comment.
Public comment is closed. Back to the commission. Do you have any comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Toledo. No, go ahead.
Okay. So let's start. First, I want to begin that I visited the site and the property, and I knocked on the resident located on that property, and I asked how they felt about that tower, and they said they're completely fine with it. And I also posted on Facebook to get more public input. I read on here that you notified the community within 100 feet of.
Was
Go ahead.
1,000 feet.
1,000 feet, okay. So I did get a good amount of public input, and people who live in the Rancho Santana area stated that they needed better service, so this would benefit them. So that's definitely a plus. And I do have a list of questions, so I guess I'll just go down my questions. Number one is safety studies have been done. Have any safety studies been done?
Yes, the applicant did submit, per FCC law, they did submit the required RF studies showing for within their 30-foot radius and within the radiuses of FCC rules that for the specific bands that they'll be using, that they are safe and that it's within the safe distance from everything in its proximity. And the applicant is available, and probably might be able to expand upon that further for you. But in general, yes, they've done the safety studies that are required by federal law, and they do meet the standards.
Okay, if the applicant is present, I'm more than happy to hear from the applicant. But I have several other questions.
Did you want him to answer that?
Yeah,
one?
you can answer that one, please. Please do. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Bill Lewis. I represent the applicant, Vertical Bridge. The question regarding the safety studies that were done, we did perform what's called an EME, electromagnetic emissions study done by a third party based off of the antennas that are going to be on the facility. And we meet all the safety guidelines set forth by the FCC. We're actually much lower than the maximum allowed limits that the FCC imposes on what is safe for the general public.
Perfect. Then I'll go on to question 2 if you'd like to stay there.
Yes.
What about any environmental studies? I did read that you did do public health studies, however, environmental studies.
Thank you for that question. Yes, we are, I believe staff stated that we're exempt from CEQA, so the California studies. However, there are federal environmental studies that we have to do, and we do file with the federal government for NEPA, and so we do our due diligence when it comes to environmental reviews at a federal level.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Moving on to 3. With the installation, does any of the engineers require protective equipment from radiation? Maybe some suits that they have to get close to the actual tower?
Thank you for that question. Per the report that was done with the EME report, it would state if there are any mitigation measures that are needed by people that are servicing the sites. No mitigation measures are needed because we are much lower than the threshold which is allowed for both public safety as well as occupational safety at the site.
Okay, so if there's any children around the area, they will be safe?
That is correct.
Within, okay. And if there is any radiation, it says what kind of radiation will it produce? That was from actually one of the concerned citizens in the area that lives in the area.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I think there's some confusion in terms of what type of radiation and emissions. So this is going to fall within electromagnetic emissions, not necessarily anything that's radiation or something that's going to cause any adverse health outcomes. So there is no concern, and we also comply with all safety guidelines as well.
Okay, and that same individual asked a different question. It says, wouldn't it make more sense having an antenna on top of Ridgemark? Because I believe the elevation may possibly, since it's...
Yeah, so we surveyed the area extensively, and I was actually involved in reaching out to a lot of the property owners in what staff refer to as the search ring. And this has been a long search to try and close the coverage gap, one for capacity as well as coverage. We had a very difficult time finding something that was suitable, that would meet the objectives of the RF engineer. I believe, is that where the water tank is, what you're referring to? I think so there's an access road going up there that's not owned. It's owned by a separate individual. I believe he's a developer, owns a bunch of property to the north. He was not interested in leasing space to us, so that was considered, but we could not get access rights up to that location.
Okay, and I don't want to repeat the question, but these are separate individuals, so I just want to make sure because they'll be watching this. Are there any unsafe distances from those towers? So you already said kids can be around but
yes. So and also one thing to note that this tower is 85 feet tall. The antennas are placed closer to the top of the tower, not all the way at the top because there's some branching at the top, but the antennas that are emitting the signal are going to be much higher than somebody that's on the ground level. And if you think about the way that the antenna signal is sent out, very similar to like a flashlight, right? It starts dissipating as it goes out. So by the time it reaches the ground level, the amount of emissions drop significantly. And that is, when we do our safety studies, ME studies, they do look at different scenarios. One from the ground level, and then say if we were in a commercial area and where there's a 2-story or 3-story structure next door, they look at it as if somebody was on the roof of that building as well. So all of those things are taken into account when we do our safety studies. And we do, from the report, which I believe is in the staff report, we are all within limits of what is considered safe by the FCC.
Thank you for answering that. And I have 3 more. Will this be used by any other providers other than T-Mobile in the future?
That is the hope. So Vertical Bridge, which is the applicant, they're a tower company. They're in the business of building wireless infrastructure for the different carriers to use. And one of the comments or one of the statements that staff mentioned that the police department was interested in potentially locating a repeater on there. Vertical Bridge has a process of what's called a co-location process, and to fill out an application, which the police department would do when they are at the point that they would be interested in locating on that tower, and we would evaluate it and make sure that what location and that it it meets all standards of building code. So a similar process would happen with the other carriers. I know that Vertical Bridge proactively reaches out to the different carriers to see if they would be interested. The goal is to develop a site that is co-locatable, so that other carriers can use it, but also meets county guidelines in terms of limiting how many towers are in the community. So we did put thought into that.
Thank you. Is there a possibility of getting an image, and I'm sure this is probably for our county, but is there a possibility of getting an image existing cell tower in the Sunny Slope East County area or throughout the county so our residents may know where these towers are located? They wanted to know. So,
A staff
Yes,
thing,
that'd be a
is there a
staff.
map available if anybody, for some reason, would want to know where they are?
Like the locations of all
Yes.
the different monopoles that we have throughout the county. I think that there may not be, but I think in working with Renee Anchera, our GIS analyst, I don't
Okay.
think it will be that difficult to obtain. I think we just need to know the locations. We can do maybe a survey and work with Renee to see if we can.
perfect. The resident would like to know.
Sure.
And then the last, I have one more last one, but then I have, okay, so will the sheriff use the tower for free or will you be charging them?
They would have to go through a co-location application. There's a lot of things that go into it in terms of what type of equipment, what antenna height. I can't comment on that because that's not something that I've had a discussion with our client about.
Sure.
But in terms of their ability to use the tower, they can go through the process of seeing what is available on that tower. As of right now, T-Mobile is the only carrier that would be on it. So this space available, there is a lot of space, so it is feasible.
Okay, and my question that I have, you said you're leasing the property, so are you paying monthly to the property owners, or how is that? Does that work?
There is a ground lease with the property owner. The specifics of it I can't disclose, but there is a long-term lease with the property owner in order to use the location that we're proposing.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Commissioner Way?
Well, actually, Commissioner Toledo covered most of what I was interested in, but I do have one remaining question, which is just a little anomaly on the map. The map with the two red zones, the white areas are areas of no coverage. There seems to be a circular hole in both coverage maps, almost dead center, and I'm wondering what's up with that. Is that just an artifact of the chart? Is it just a mistake?
I would think it's just part of the chart. They're referring to the area on the outside as the white. I don't think that center piece is a
Here we go.
lack of service.
I'm not quite sure exactly what that white circle is.
Okay.
I think it's just
It doesn't
I think
matter.
it was taken from the maps.
All right, fair enough. Thanks.
Commissioners, are you?
And one thing that that I like to state in terms of the coverage maps, what you're seeing right here with the proposed site to the right where it's turned on and to the left where it's not there, you're seeing the coverage, but one thing to note is the capacity. And what do I mean by the capacity is, how much data, how many users can simultaneously use their phones. We're coming into an era where it's more, people are using their phones a lot more. People are working from home, and the ability to have reliable internet is something of need. And there is going to be more development, residential development surrounding that area and throughout the county. And the need for not only coverage, but added capacity is significant and only compounding.
I appreciate that comment, and that's exactly what I was going to ask again, or about that. If there were other carriers that you were going to be able to use, like Verizon and T-Mobile or all the other ones.
So T-Mobile would be the anchor tenant on this site. The other carriers, the hopes are that they will also locate on there. The tower is designed to allow for other carriers as well, not only on the pole, but also space within the compound itself for their ground equipment. So we're planning, this site has been designed to accommodate all the future carriers to come.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scagliotti?
Yes, I have a couple. You guys said there's not another tower within a mile. Best Road to the east has a big tower. Isn't that within a mile?
I'm not familiar with that, exactly where that is and how far the distance is. We did survey within a mile. The closest site that we have, and you can actually see it to the south, barely, it's like right here. That's over a mile away, but T-Mobile is already at that facility. One thing to note also, the search area that we're trying to cover is to the north of our project site. And that area we surveyed drastically in order to try and get something. We were at the last potential option, and it pushed us more south. I think ideally, we would have preferred to go north, but this is the closest that we can get.
Okay. And then staff also said that the sheriff could hook onto that, sounded like for free at any time is the way they worded it. Now you're saying they have to go through some process to get on there? I think that should be waived for safety reasons for our community. I think they should have carte blanche to get on there.
I appreciate that comment. We're not familiar with what is being asked in terms of how much space, the height that the antennae is going to be located at. And so in order for us to give a blanket free, we don't have enough information to comment on it. We were just asked if it would be feasible. It is feasible, and we do, in other situations, Vertical Bridge does have public safety repeaters on their facilities. It is something that is definitely done, but in order for me to properly answer that, I would need to know specifically what height they were interested in, how much equipment, the wind loading, and to see if that's going to prohibit any other carrier from going on there.
One more question.
Yes.
Was any thought and effort put into anything besides this pine tree? Did anybody think maybe like a windmill or something that's aesthetic to our community instead of this tree that doesn't really fit the area? Has anybody put any thought and effort into something else?
Yes. So there are multiple different stealthing options. Usually it starts off as a bare pole, right? What's referred to as a monopole. It's a steel pole. There's no stealthing element associated with that. We didn't feel that was going to be appropriate in the community, and I believe that there is some stealthing requirements that are required within the code. We determined that a pine tree was going to be the most suitable. And one thing to note in terms of, say, you brought up a windmill. A windmill, it is an agricultural use and does fit in terms of the agricultural aesthetics of the community. However, once you start adding multiple carriers on there, it starts getting cluttered. You have antennas on the legs, you have antennas at the top, and it's really difficult to screen the antenna itself. I mean, you'll have a windmill at the top, but once you start adding in all the antennas, it starts getting cluttered. In terms of thinking about the future of the community, we felt that a tree would be the most appropriate. It would blend in. The county, especially in this area, it's changing in terms of from total agricultural use to more residential use. You have a huge development to the west. I know the property owner to the east is trying to develop that to residential. I think in that area there's going to be potentially more single family, and I think for the long-term use or the long-term thought of this site, I think a pine tree would be the most appropriate. And also will screen the current and future antennas most effectively.
Mr. Chair,
Abraham?
if I may. Mr. Lewis, thank you for that explanation. And to answer your question as well, Commissioner Scagliotti, we did talk with staff about potential other options that could potentially be able to have a stealth type of aesthetic look. And Jonathan, our lead planner on this project, contacted the applicant as well, and we do have a slide out there. If it's your request, Jonathan can put it up there and kind of just show other examples of what other communities have done and something that can be potentially fitting. But the proposal is a monopine, and so that is what the applicant is requesting. But we do have, in anticipation of this potential question, other views to, as other communities have included. It's up to you, Mr. Chair, and the commission.
Did you have any other questions? Okay. Does anyone else have concerns about the design? I'm not a big fan of anything that's a monopole or a monopine. But are there any other concerns about the design from the commissioners to my left? No? Commissioner Scagliotti.
May we see some of the other designs that you came up with, please? Staff has some other, I want to see them.
Do you have images of the,
Other images? I want to see them,
please?
please.
So these were some other towers that I tried to pull up that would kind of be fitting of the area as it sits today. The middle is sort of under these. It's a cell tower sort of enclosure they can build around it. It still provides signal. You can still do all those things, but it looks more like a silo kind of option, which can be in larger perspective can be sometimes fitting, sometimes not. The water tower option, which is you can see the cell tower on it. It would have to be larger to accommodate for co-location, but that's kind of an idea of what it could look like. And that's sort of a windmill example of what it looks like if it were sort of in a later state. But those were some options that I came up with that I thought were appropriate for the area. There were others, but like, cactus was very popular, but that doesn't really fit the area well. So apparently people like them. But those were some options that I thought might be future examples, but it was a little bit tricky to find ones that would still be good coverage options as well.
So for the applicant, would the water tower design function? I know there is one off of Fallon, and I don't know how many antennas are on there, but would something like that function? We're trying to get away from the
Tree.
monopoles and monopines and.
Yeah, so two things regarding the water tank. One is the footprint. If you see the legs of the tank, that would fit if we had a much larger lease area. That's going to start to encumber the 40-foot by 40-foot lease area that we have a lease for, and really potentially prohibit future carriers from actually having a sufficient space on the ground. The second thing is you can see the antennas on the outside of it. If we were to add a second carrier or the repeater from the police department, you start having to add the antennas to the legs, and then it becomes much more noticeable. The windmill option to the left, again, that we could potentially evaluate that. That footprint of that is going to be slightly less, but usually with windmills, the most recent ones that we've designed, we've had a little bit more space, say a 50-foot by 50-foot lease area versus a 40-foot by 40-foot, because of the legs of it and the footprint. And then you can see the metal frame going all the way down. It really cannibalizes the pad area that we have.
Thank you. Commissioner Scagliotti?
I have one question.
Yes.
What's the cost of the monopine tree against the cost of either the windmill or the water tank? What's the cost difference?
I'm not sure the cost difference. We handle all the pre-construction work. I'm not privy to the budget in terms of once it's ordered and the construction side of things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Way?
Yeah, I just think it's interesting, interesting observation that you refer to the center design as a silo, because my first reaction to it was that it was a smokestack.
Oh.
So I wouldn't be in favor of that in particular, but.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Toledo?
So I also got community members who are against the tower in general because they are worried about health. So they said no towers, but I understand the need of our community because it is evolving, and I'm saying this publicly, so if they see, I don't want them to think that I'm disregarding those community members who are against the tower because of health reasons. And the fact that I haven't seen any studies, or there hasn't been official studies, unless if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any health studies out there stating that the radiation causes any cancer.
The federal regulations are really more what regulate that aspect, and as he stated, that they've met those requirements. From the information that I gathered from FCC and other sources about the radiation, the tower does seem to be well within the limits, and actually under for some, in some cases, for a typical tower of that size. And also, majority of cell towers, kind of in, at least in this area, they're actually larger and further, so they would actually be
Sure.
worse than,
And
than
he
the
covered that.
alternative. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, like I said, I'm just making sure that the community members who reached out to me with those reasons that why they didn't want the tower, I just wanted to put it out there. I understand the need for the other community members because we are evolving. We have more homes, and people are working from home, and I believe there's a campus going to be there, so they're going to have those needs as well. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. I will just say that the co-location for the Sheriff's Department communication is a good thing that we should be asking gratis for every future project, because it's a safety issue. And we know currently the system is not functioning at times. So that's important. I'm also not a big fan of the monopole designs. I would prefer something else. But it seems that we can see what Commissioner Scaliotti wants to do.
I'd like to see us continue this and bring us back another design. I'm not against it. I think it's a great place to put it, but I just don't want to see a pine tree out in the middle of agricultural land that doesn't belong there. I don't care if it develops or not. I want it to look like what the area is, and the area is agricultural farmland where there used to be windmills and there used to be water tanks and all that. I know it sounds funny and stupid, but I want my county to look like it used to look, even if there's houses around. Otherwise, I'm for it, but I'd like to see a better design. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, motion to,
Motion to continue
Continue.
to go back to the drawing board on the design.
yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor to continue the item?
Mr. Chair, as a moment of discussion, you did bring up the sheriff's request, and Mr. Lewis indicated that they needed more information. Would you like, if the motion does pass, would you like to add that staff work with the sheriff to provide more information to Mr. Lewis to see if they can provide that
Yes.
repeater for free? If
Thank
possible?
you.
Yes.
Will you accept that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. And a second as well?
I will second that.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Hopefully we can
Aye.
get something back soon with a better design that is not a monopole. Okay, thank you. Next item, 7.2. Hold the public hearing and consider adopting a resolution regarding county planning file PLN 220024 minor subdivision tentative parcel map.
All right. Good evening again, Commissioners. I'm Jonathan Leavis, Assistant Planner, and I'm going to be presenting to you 4701 Santa Ana Valley Road, minor subdivision PLN 220024. And here we go. All right. So we're going to discuss the location, project description, site plan, CEQA work, and land use consistency, as well as give staff recommendations. So the site is approximately 7 miles east of downtown Hollister at the intersection of John Smith and Santa Ana Valley Road. The project is located in a rural area surrounded by mostly agricultural land uses with some rural housing. The project scope is to subdivide an existing 562.8 acre lot into 3 lots. Parcel 1 will be 165.8 acres and has an existing residence, septic, and well. Parcel 2 will be 136.9 acres and has an existing residence, septic, and well. Parcel 3 will be 260.1 acres and is currently undeveloped and proposes no new construction at this time. The applicant has also agreed to building envelopes as well that exclude certain areas as indicated on the next slide. It is also worth noting that despite such a large amount of land, the subdivision changes very little about what entitlements would be allowed, as the lots are large and because the applicant proposes only new lines and not any building. Additionally, the zoning already allows nearly the same degree of use without the subdivision. Okay, and as indicated on the image on screen, this is the site plan, and the non-buildable areas are in white and blue, and the buildable areas are the hash marks and require no further discretionary review by the county. And so we can see here in the middle. So I just want to make it a little bit more clear. So the over in the northern part here, we can see the division for parcel 1, 2, and then this is 3. No development proposed here. The existing house and the existing well, and this area here in the center is the non-buildable area, as well as that area to the far northeast corner. Okay, both these photos are from the proposed parcel 1 facing northwest and west. These photos are from the proposed boundary of parcel 1 and 2 on the left and facing east, and the proposed parcel 3 on the right facing north. This parcel is designated as under the general plan as rangeland or RG. This designation aims to preserve open space and grazing land in county hills, mountains, and remote areas characterized by limited access, high fire hazard, and absence of public infrastructure. It permits essential agricultural support uses and 1 main residential unit per lot. The zoning is agricultural rangeland or AR. The intent of this district is to allow agricultural rangeland uses per the general plan, with provisions for low density residential development and farm worker housing to preserve open space and agriculture, especially in areas lacking in public infrastructure, and the project as proposed is consistent with both. An initial study, mitigated negative declaration, was prepared. The county performed tribal notification and consultation under AB 52. Mitigation measures were identified based on analysis and technical reports. Impacts were mitigated included geology and soils, cultural resources, and tribal cultural resources. The ISM&D was duly noticed for 30 days beginning May 9th, 2023, and ended on June 8th, 2023. The county received comments on the ISM&D. The comments addressed a minor correction of details regarding clarity of following the geotechnical report recommendations versus producing a new one. The addition of a tribal mitigation measure is missing from the original mitigation measure. In response to the county subsequently edited the document and recirculated it from June 6th, 2023 till July 6th, 2023. The county received comments from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and staff drafted substitute mitigation measures in response to the CODFW comments, mitigation BR2. Aside from the aforementioned mitigation measure, the document was edited for clarification, amplification, and insignificant modification prior to the August 16, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. This did not require recirculation of the document per state CEQA guidelines. Okay, staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the staff report, review the attached draft resolution, which includes the CEQA ISM&D, findings, and conditions of approval. Staff further recommends that the Planning Commission make the findings included in the resolution and adopt the resolution to approve minor subdivision parcel map PLN 220024, subject to the conditions of approval found in the resolution. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission before we go to public comment?
I have one. What was Fish and Game's concern?
Fish and Game just had comments about if future development were to happen, that there be a biology study done and a botanical one done to verify that there are certain endangered species, both federally and state, on the property, and that they are actively nesting or using this as a migration area. Things like Swansea hawk, American badgers, things like that. There are about 10 species in total.
What is the future for development?
The applicant has not proposed any construction at this time. It is also being actively farmed and ranched.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to public comment.
If you have any public comment, please fill out a speaker card and present it to the clerk or raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
It's preferred, yeah.
Okay, so there does not appear to be any public comment, but the applicant's representative would like to speak.
Okay, public comment is closed. Ms. Hall, if you'd please come up to the microphone.
I'm Ann Hall with San Benito Engineering. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Thank you for letting me speak. I know I've been working with Jonathan back and forth over the last year and a half, and he's been working hard to try and get this to this point. But I do have a couple comments on the conditions as proposed. Specifically, my first one is about condition number 18, and I think this might just be a matter of a clarification. As Jonathan said, this is a large lot that's being divided into 3 large lots. The Williamson Act contracts have already been divided into 3, so all these new parcels would be under Williamson Act. The intent is to keep them farming, in ag production. And we have identified building envelopes on the property to stay away from fault zone, to stay away from flood zone, to stay away from any wild wetlands areas. But condition 18 talks about new development. Any new development should be subject to future development, archaeological study, environmental review, or CEQA. Now, as part of this project, we've already done an archaeological study. We've done CEQA. I just want to clarify that refers to future subdivision. Is that what's meant by future development? Because once this is complete, you'll have 3 lots, one of which has no house. If that lot chooses to build a house, I don't think that it should have to do another archaeological study and another environmental study. But the way this condition's written, it could be interpreted that way. So I'd like to clarify that that's referring to future subdivision. And if it does refer to future subdivision, it's kind of redundant because any subdivision's already subject to that. So I definitely do not think a single house being built on the property as a result of this subdivision should be subject to this as a condition. So I'd like you to consider either removing it or at least clarifying it refers to future subdivisions.
We'll have staff reply to that one
Okay.
later.
The second one that I'd like to bring to your attention is condition number 25, which is roadway improvements. Again, this is property that's currently being farmed. It's intended to continue being farmed in a rural area on what we will all agree is not a very good road, but it's in keeping with most of the roads in that rural area. This particular property has 2.25 miles of frontage. The costs associated with improving the road to the county standard would make this, would make this not feasible. There's no particular financial gain here. This is not a subdivision for profit, as if, you're building homes, and it would make the whole project not feasible to do that amount of road improvements. We'd like to request that this condition be waived, which I know the planning commission has the authority to do so. I do know staff does not have the authority. This is a requirement of the ordinance. Staff has to ask for that. I understand it, but we're asking that the planning commission look at it in the overall scope of what this project is and consider whether road improvements make sense, given what's going on. And then the third one is BR2, which is under the mitigation measures. This was the last item that Jonathan brought up. This project went to the state clearinghouse twice for the CEQA. The first time it went up there, Department of Fish and Game, or California Department of Fish and Wildlife, had no comment. The second time it went up there, they did not comment within the comment period. They sent the letter after the comment period closed. And then the letter they sent, frankly, is so generic, it could apply to any property in North County. All right, it lists all the species that might be present on the property. It has nothing specifically to do with this property. It's just a generic thing of all the species that might be available, which is included in this BR2. I know staff put that in there in response to that letter, but again, does that mean to build one house, you have to go out and do a biological report on species that there's no particular reason to believe even exist on this property? It's a very catch-all and generic letter that they wrote, and it seems somewhat overkill, again, for the nature of this project. Since that was not part of the CEQA that was circulated, I believe you have the authority to remove that if you want to, or at a minimum, I would like it clarified as to what the statement prior to any construction means. Does that mean a single home? Does that mean future subdivision? Because those make a big difference to the applicant at this point. Do you have any questions for me?
Are there any questions at this time? We can always go back. Okay, so no questions at this time, thank you.
Mhm.
If we could have staff respond to 1825 and BR2, please. And then we'll go to public comment.
Jonathan, I can, if you don't mind. Mr. Chair, so condition number 8, thanks first of all, and for bringing up these conditions. Number 18, future development, where it says all future development shall be subject to further review by the county, including but not limited to archaeological study and environmental review or determination under the California Environmental Quality Act. So essentially, once a project is entitled like this and it goes through the parcel map process, then it becomes final with, in this case, three lots on the subdivision. And so as it is now, or as it is if you do approve and it is subdivided, there is the ability to have ministerial projects approved. And the ministerial projects are essentially projects that are that can be processed or approved by right. What's allowed, and particular, like for example, it can be one unit. If it's rangeland, I think it's 1 unit per 40 acres, and that's ministerial. That's by right, where it doesn't necessarily have to require all of the CEQA requirements. It can be exempt. So, in discussing right now briefly, while Anne was providing her comments, I mean, condition number 18, if it's a desire of the planning commission to remove it, it's fine. What applies, and what doesn't apply, it doesn't apply. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be requiring CEQA if they want to do a ministerial project that, for like one home per 40 acres on rangeland. So, just wanted to put that in the record. On the road improvements, Steve was going to be here, but he got caught up on a different project, but basically he indicated that it's a decision of the commission. If the commission wants to waive the frontage improvements, that is up to you and is correct, though it is part of the code requirements. But they are not proposing any type of development. Usually, when they are proposing a development, then we want to make sure that those frontage improvements are there. This is a subdivision. It is a requirement of the code, but it is up to the commission. And the last one on BR2, these are recommendations prior to any construction. California Department of Fish and Wildlife recommends that a qualified biologist, etc. And so, again, if it's a ministerial project, and it's, at that point exempt, as if it would be done without the subdivision, we wouldn't necessarily require CEQA. If we couldn't exempt it, then this would not apply. So if it stays, it does say recommend, so it doesn't necessarily require us as the lead agency to require it unless we want, to impose CEQA. But it's up to you if you want to remove it or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Going to go to public comment first before I forget. Is there any public comment via Zoom?
If you would like to comment on Zoom, please raise your hand. There is no public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
Okay, public comment is closed. Back to the commission. Are there any comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Way.
Yes, just a comment, well, a couple comments. On the BR2, this is supposedly a mitigation member and the mitigation measure. And the mitigation measure is that the CDFW recommends something. That doesn't strike me as a mitigation. I don't understand how, and I agree with the comment that this is really generic. I would like to consider striking this, just personally. And going back to the other two, 18, I'm conflicted on. I'm inclined to support striking it, but I'd be fine with leaving it in. 25, I think the applicant has a point with regards to the roadways, just for my opinion.
Okay. Commissioner Toledo?
I'm okay with removing 18. The 25 roadway improvements, I do have, I would like to see if the road needs fixing. I mean, because it's in our, what is it? What would you call it? It's in our codes, right? That's like an automatic
Requirement per code.
requirement, yes, protocol. So I would like to see the Santa Ana Valley Road where you turn into their property to see if it needs fixing. But, so, other than that, for the other one, the BR2, I'm okay with, I understand the conflict of just kind of having, yeah, I understand what she's trying to say, so that's fine removing it as well. Go ahead, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Scagliotti.
Yes, I'm okay with removing BR2, but I would like to see us keep 18 and 25. Thank you.
Okay. I could see deferring 25. However, I have concerns about further subdivision. There wasn't a reason stated why this is being subdivided. If it's to be kept in farming, what is the point of subdividing it? I know it can be split up even more. And my concern would be that we're going to turn Santa Ana Valley into Fairview Road, which we don't need. So if we're going to approve it, I would like to see another condition that if any of these 3 lots is further subdivided, that the applicant repair Santa Ana Valley Road and John Smith across all 3 parcels that are being created today. But if the intent is that it will be kept in ag, then that won't be an issue. So that's my thought. I'm fine with 18 with Abraham's clarification. Is there any comment from the applicant about a condition of further subdivision? And a condition that the entire length of both roads be fixed upon further subdivision?
The purpose for subdivision is because there's multiple owners. You can come up.
Thank you.
I'll let the applicant answer that particular question.
Michael Brigantino, one of the owners. Yeah, and the purpose is there's 4 owners that own this property together. And at some point, it'll give us the ability, if we ever need to split it up amongst ourselves, it gives us multiple parcels One owner can take one parcel, one owner can take another one, then two owners will take the other one. So that's the main kind of thought process behind this. There's no, like I said, our intent is to keep it how it is. It's currently leased out to Taylor Farms. We have no plans of changing that. So yeah, that's just
Okay,
kind of.
so then would you accept a condition that if there's further subdivision, the road, the entire length of the both roads along the entire stretch of all three parcels being created today be repaired?
Would they, I guess, do you want to speak on that?
So, a deferred improvement agreement, so this would be beyond a deferred improvement agreement,
Correct.
is what you're asking?
It would trigger major repairs if there's going to be further subdivision of any one of the three
Right.
parcels created
So,
today.
It just means if any one of the three chose to go ahead with subdivision, they'd be responsible for the full 2.25
Okay.
frontage improvements.
But if we keep it how it is, then
would-
there's no,
Correct.
Then nothing happens.
so, okay. So if we can get it waived, then,
Or-
and then add that condition if it's further subdivided,
Mhm.
fine with that.
Okay. If we can get council to come up with some magic wording to cover that condition? Okay.
Okay.
I feel better already. Thank you. Because we don't want to, like I said, see Santa Ana Valley look like Fairview. Yep. Okay. Anything else from the commissioners? Any other comments, or is there a motion with the additional condition regarding further subdivision? The motion would also include removing BR2. And I think that would also, with that addition of that condition, there would be no need for 25.
Yeah, so strike 25, strike BR2, leave 18 there.
And then add a condition that any further subdivision on any one of those parcels triggers the entire length of the Santa Ana Valley Road and John Smith Road on all three parcels would be repaired to the full width of the county road.
Okay, yeah, the county standards,
County standards, yes.
complete county standards.
Ann?
Regarding 18, I understand Abraham's response that ministerial projects would not fall under that, but can that be added in some way to that condition? And I'm only asking because, staff changes, and I understand that's our agreement here in the room today, but the condition can be read differently, and
Okay.
I've seen that happen.
Can we get clarification written into that condition?
I would leave it as is because that's the way SQL operates, is that ministerial.
Is your mic?
But right now it says any development, so,
I would
I'll maybe change the wording so that it works. Yeah, I think it does make sense to strike it because SQL works by, if it's ministerial, then SQL is not required.
Okay. So then to restate, is there a motion on the table to add the condition regarding fixing the entire length of both roads if there's further subdivision, striking BR2, striking 25, and striking 18? Is there a motion?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Quick and painless, thank you. Relatively painless. Let's see, back to the agenda. Are there any commissioner announcements?
I have none.
No?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
A motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if we could please take care of those